Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar, and this is Mike. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. Last week I asked you guys what you wanted Fanstoys to make, and of course last week we were identifying are some of these releases redundant that Fanstoys is making. What would you rather see them make? The fun thing about this list is that this is viewer driven, completely viewer suggestions, and of course there's no wrong answer. So let's have a lot of fun. Got quite a few responses, so we're going to move through it fast. Coming up. Starting out with some Headmasters, the Highbrow and Brainstorm specifically, but obviously we've got Make Toys that's making these figures allegedly, and I'm thinking kind of the thought process behind a lot of collectors is we want to fill out that shelf, but if Fanstoys were going to do these guys, then you know they'd do them all. Of course they'd have to do Chrome Dome, they'd have to do the whole set, at least the 4 main ones, and get them out, but I think it's a great suggestion, a great idea. I don't know what's going on with how long it's going to take Make Toys to get these out. They've got designs. They should be coming soon, eventually, whatever. But if Fanstoys made them, they would be a premium, high paint, high level of paint. You have more die-cast. I know that the Make Toys doesn't have any die-cast, but they are still pretty hefty for not having a lot of die-cast. But yes, this is definitely a great idea. I'd love to see it. Next up, Cliff Jumper. More specifically, Cliff Jumper, but I'm sure if Fanstoys did a Cliff Jumper, they're smart enough to turn that Cliff Jumper into a Bumblebee also. I would think it would look super tuned in both modes. I don't think they would go the route of making it look like an actual car, but I don't know. See, that's a questionable area, seeing how they would get into it. I'm actually really curious. Would they make the alt mode look like the Penny Racer? Would the alt mode look like a real car? And of course, with their Bumblebee. Now, I'm one that says I like Takara Bumblebee. I think it looks good on my shelf. I know it's not perfect. I am curious as to see if Fanstoys could beat it. Next pick from you guys last week was the Ironhide and the Ratchet. Now, Ironhide and Ratchet from Takara were sort of the beginnings of this super hyper-tuned look that Takara is going for, but I still don't feel like they look the greatest. I think they could have done a whole lot better job, like getting rid of the side skirts, cleaning up the legs. I think Ratchet looks more like the on-screen counterpart of Ratchet than Ironhide. But maybe that's simply just because of the animation and the way the animation was. But then again, that's what this whole hobby's about. Trying to match that animation close, but not in every case. In the cases that the animation looks good. And I think Ironhide's animation does look good. I don't think Takara's Ironhide did Ironhide service. I'm sure Fanstoys would. Alright, so the next one that was selected by viewers was a Quake Wave 2.0, and you know, I think this makes sense, although of course, you know, Fanstoys has a whole lot of other releases on their plate. Why go after another figure again? I handled this figure way early on, like right when it was released. I was actually buying a guy's Takara stuff, some of his Takara stuff, and he showed it to me, and I got to handle it. It did feel hefty, it did feel heavy, and he went out of his way to make me pick it up, to feel how heavy it was, to feel how solid it was, to feel the build of it. And I did feel all that, but I did not like the aesthetic of it. I just didn't feel like it captured the character as well as a lot of the other Fanstoys releases that have come since then. But looking at it, it's not bad. I just think, yes, today, Fanstoys could do a better job, and they could nail it. A 2.0 would look amazing. So that's actually a good suggestion. Next up, Fanstoys doing a Scorponok. Now, again, we got some guidance that we're going to get FT40, maybe. But if that thing comes, he needs something to go up against, and a Scorponok would be great, and in that size, in that scale, would be huge, would be massive, huge. I think it would be great. Now, this picture, of course, is a little bit of leaks information for Sunday's news. There's a lot more pictures of this to come in the news. Now, we can't really talk about big bots without talking about combiners, and of course, there were quite a few combiners suggested, so I'm going to go in the order that I feel is the most necessary, and I think the most necessary would be Defensor and Computron. I felt like Fanstoys should have done that from the get-go. I truly feel Fanstoys is positioned in a way that they could have put their Minosaur out after every other Minosaur, and they still would have sold every bit as well. I don't think they needed to compete. I think they should have given us what we needed on our shelf, like a full-size Defensor or a full-size Computron that both look super G1. Fanstoys would deliver that Super G1 look. They would also have incorporate some things to make it even look a little bit toy. I'm sure that they would. It would be great, and it's what we need. Next up, the Abominas and Preda King. Again, there's good versions out there, but not in the new scale, that Zeta has set the new scale. I think that these would look great made by Fanstoys. Again, I would rather see these come after Defensor and Computron, because I think Defensor and Computron are earlier on characters that more people are associated with and would like more, and that's why I think these came later, so they would be maybe a later priority or a lower priority, but still a priority, and still Fanstoys make them look. I don't know what is going on with Zeta, and well, King Toys is moving very quickly with their Preda King, but I don't know what's going on with Zeta. Have they completely given up on Preda King? Who knows? Haven't heard anything about that in a while. And I would list Devastator as, of course, this is Devastator specifically pointed out as lower on the combiner list simply because we have the Toy World version. Now, Toy World's version of Devastator Constructor is a good-looking Devastator. I've got the one that looks as G1 as it's gonna get, and I think it looks good. But I'm wondering what Fanstoys would do. I am so interested in seeing what the Fanstoys design would look like, how much better it would look than Toy World, if it does look better than Toy World, and would it hold up better? Would it have better hardware? I'm just curious and interested. Toy World obviously is milking this mold for all that they can, but I'm wondering also how much that price of Fanstoys would be. So I saw some mention of Target Masters, so I looked to see kind of what most people find as the most popular of the Target Masters that aren't the ones that have already been made, obviously. And looking at this, a Trigger Happy and a Misfire. Now, this is getting into obscure territory, and I don't think that Fanstoys would dig that deep just yet, but let me also say this. If Fanstoys made these and kept the price reasonable, they would sell and sell out because they would be amazing looking, they would look great on the shelf, and it would be one of those things that would be the biggest buzz in all of the community when they released it. I can tell you that they would go over very well, but I believe most people's belief is that these wouldn't sell well because they're so obscure, and I completely disagree with that idea. The next viewer recommendation one is Punch Counterpunch. Now this is, in my opinion, a no-brainer. I think that we could have a Punch Counterpunch war that would rival the Springer Wars, and it would sell. It would be awesome to have multiple different companies to choose from, but Fanstoys would have a great feel. Fanstoys would look awesome. Fanstoys Transformation would be, challenging, but wouldn't it look good? And of course, I would have to pick the mode I like the most and just keep it there. Now, another recommendation was Alpha Tryon. Now, I don't know if Fanstoys would ever make a figure that doesn't transform. I don't know if Fanstoys would just make up a transformation for it. So, I don't know. I just don't know. Guess what? There's a first time for everything. A first time for them to make an Alpha Tryon, a figure that doesn't transform, that looks amazing, that does everything that they say, everything that they do, and is made by this company up to their standard. I think it would sell. Wait, aren't the rules if it doesn't transform, you gotta charge way more? So the next one that was voted on was Sideswipe, and I agree that Sideswipe Takara mold it's outdated. It doesn't match the new stuff Takara's putting out. I don't think it's a bad figure at all, but what would Fanstoys do with it? What would a Fanstoys version look like? And I start to look at this and I start to think, yeah, Fanstoys would be super clean compared to this. It would look so much better than this. Maybe it would look like this. Bad Cube. Bad Cube did a good job with theirs, but I still feel like Fanstoys would improve on it. Now, first of all, I don't think Bad Cubes has a lot of paint. Fanstoys would be dripping in paint. I think it would have a much more reflective paint job. I also think that design-wise, it would be even sleeker, even cleaner. And what about the transformation? Yeah, we know, it'd be a bear. Now, once Fanstoys finally gets around to figuring out and deciding exactly what they're going to do with their Trailbreaker, they could give us a hoist. Now, that would be quite a bit of re-engineering into a hoist. Probably far less parts getting reused than we would expect. But Anyway, the X-Transbots version out there looks great. It's still hard to get and a bit pricey. But what would Fanstoys look like? What would Fanstoys feel? That's a question right there. Now, this was brought up by a viewer. Would X-Transbots still be better? Because X-Transbots is good. I haven't handled it yet. I'm just going by what everybody else has said, that it's good, and it looks good, and it matches tune and all that. What direction would Fanstoys go with it? I'm really curious now. Would they match the tune 100%? Would they make it look a little bit more heroic? Would it match closer to the Trailbreaker, kind of like what we saw with MMC? Lots of questions to be answered if Fanstoys took this character on. Next up, I want to talk about Orion Pax and Alita 1. So, these two characters made by Fanstoys would look great. Now, this gets into real obscure territory, and obscure territory in the one time, in that one episode, in that one thing, yes. But it would look good. Now, we've already got a Black Mamba oversized version of Hasbro, which looks good. Fits really well in with your Masterpiece shelf, so that's already available, but it doesn't have any diecast, and it's not really Masterpiece. It's just an upscale of a Chug. What would Takara... Nope. Fanstoys. Ha! What would Fanstoys do with this character? I don't know, but it would look great. Also, Alita 1, we know X-Transbots is making one, and we do know that Fanstoys Rouge, it's a good figure. I wouldn't classify it as a great figure. I don't know if they'd want to do another Fembot, because their Rouge was not well received. It wasn't well received at all. Nowadays, it's sold out and sought after, and people want it, which is just the Fanstoys curse, or the Fanstoys blessing. But would they want to do another Fembot? I don't know. Next up, Gears. And Gears is highly logical, as Spock would say. It's Gears by Bad Cube is the best one on the market right now. Probably the only one that really truly fits on a Masterpiece shelf. And I think they did a great job. I don't think it's a bad figure. I do think Fanstoys could improve upon it. I think the Fanstoys version could look better, could look more tuned than what they did with the Bad Cube. So it's definitely a good option, and it doesn't surprise me because they are doing all of the mini-bots, it seems like. They are just cranking out mini-bot after mini-bot after mini-bot, so they'll all get done eventually. By the time they finally roll around to it, they'll eventually get a Gears done. It'll have a great paint job, it'll have great quality, it'll feel good. Hopefully it's not $120 by the time they get to it. Now, getting into the last of these viewer-submitted requests for a Fanstoys figure to be made, we're looking at Optimus Prime and Megatron. Now, I've already shared my beliefs on when the timeline, when this would go down, probably their swan song. Now, I got that from viewers also. That was an idea brought up by a viewer that they probably have the designs for these, or at least an idea of how they would go about with the transformation and make them look good. And it would probably be the last thing they make, maybe 2030. It was like, hey, you know what? We're done making Masterpiece Transformers. It's over. Let's go out with a bang with the best Megatron ever made, the best Optimus Prime ever made. And I could see that happening. I could see that being their swan song, the Fanstoys swan song. By then, the prices would be $500 a piece probably. I mean, who knows? But think about it. We've gotten some amazing Optimus Primes. MP36 is a great figure. There's also other third-party companies that made decent-looking Megatrons out there. How could Fanstoys improve on it? Well, the front and the back, super clean. They could make them look super ultra-tuned and have a bit of a real-world feel. Lots of glistening, beautiful paint. I mean, Takara MP44 is great. It's good. It's hard to even imagine improving on that. I bet you Fanstoys has an idea how it could be done. And I saved Ultra Magnus for last because I personally think the introduction of parts forming with the Minosaur with Fanstoys shows Fanstoys isn't afraid of parts forming. I think that a lot of companies were. I know for a fact Takara was avoiding parts forming with this character on purpose, and if they used parts forming, I think it would have been a much better figure. I think it would have matched the aesthetic of the tune a whole lot better. It would have been a little bit sleeker, not quite as overly bulky, because it's not that bulky of a character. He's a big character, not that bulky of a character. I think Fanstoys would use a parts forming element, and it would be better than this. So let me know what you think about your list, because this is your list, viewers, of the Fanstoys figures that they could make, that you want them to make. Was there anything that you guys were mentioning that I missed? Like, subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.